to honor him with this thing. Yes, yes.
Thank you, Balaji, Sudarsan, Bindu Madhav, everybody from CDAC Bangalore and from elsewhere. You know, it is kind of bringing to the old memories, right in this same very hall, at some point in time, TLDs were introduced, top level domain in Indian languages. And .Bharat was inaugurated right from here. And ever since then, I think a lot of things have happened. And internet, when we say next generation internet, we can actually look at it in very different ways. It's like an elephant that you see from different sides, and sometimes you see it as a tree, and sometimes you see it as a rope, and sometimes you see it as a rock or something like that. So, internet, when it started way back, and at that time, it was just ability to, it basically started a DARPANET project. And the idea was that one should be able to send a communication or data from one side to other side. And the very first time when a byte was sent from MeitY and was received at Stanford, I think people were very, very excited about this particular aspect, that a data can be communicated over telephone lines, operating at only 300 BPS. 300, not kilo BPS, 300 BPS. And I just want to make sure that people understand, even today, even kilo BPS actually sounds very, very low. 300 BPS basically means 30 bytes a second. And 30 bytes a second is equal to, if you actually open up a terminal of Windows and say dir, one particular line that will show will take 2 seconds to display. 30 bytes, nothing much. Now, with that kind of a system to today, when we are looking at even at homes, now we are talking of tens and 40s of megabyte a second, right? But definitely on organizations, we are talking of 40 gigabyte and 100 gigabyte per second kind of communication bandwidth. It's not 1 or 2 order of magnitude more, but it is 10 order of magnitude, 9 order of magnitude, and that is the kind of power that has been brought in. So now there are 2 aspects that one need to look at in next generation internet. So one is, with that kind of bandwidth availability, okay, first question that comes to our mind is, do we need more bandwidth, or is this bandwidth enough, right? And I'll probably touch upon this a little bit, okay? And the second thing is that, so first thing is that if this bandwidth is sufficient or not sufficient, and if it is not sufficient, what are the kind of technologies that can push it further, okay? And the second thing is that commensurate to this bandwidth, what kind of applications will be the driving applications for tomorrow's internet? What kind of applications can actually be using this kind of a bandwidth? And I want to actually elaborate on both of these. So I don't think, if you actually talk to your kids at home, I haven't seen a kid who says internet is sufficient in bandwidth or internet is sufficient in speed. And remember, these are kids right now, they are going to grow. And I actually just go by that. And therefore, need for even higher speed networks will probably be fueled by electronic games, will be fueled by children's curiosity, and will be fueled by people's ability to project themselves in 3D spaces. So just imagine, these days kids rarely go into the playgrounds to play, right? And whether parents like it or not, this is the evolution of mankind. Okay, we may actually complain that kids should go and do a physical exercise, this and that, but I think humanity is resilient against such kind of things. Over several billions of years, the humanity has lived, and as recent as COVID, when suddenly everybody thought half of the humanity might get wiped out, it didn't happen. So in general, I think humanity is resilient about various changes, and that's why biological changes or evolution keeps happening. So therefore, these technologies are the next technology. They basically have come as part and parcel of our life. The internet is connecting people not for communication any longer. Internet is connecting people for movement, for doing things together. Right? It's like your brain cells, right? They're connected together through neurons, and there's certain kind of computation that keeps happening. Extend it. It's like people, which is basically the intelligence network of this planet, custodian of the planet's health. They come together, work together for the benefit, for the betterment of the planet. Today, when we talk of sustainability and all that, was this sustainability not an issue earlier? They were. But today, when we look at and say, talk about, this ozone layer is depleting or whatever, or, we need to reduce carbon footprint, or we need to do this, or we need to do that, and we need to do various alternate energy methods and all that. Why are we talking about this? This has been actually, if you look at the core of it, it has been made possible because studies can be done in a collaborative manner, and today you can actually look at and say, yes, this is possible. And we can learn from each other's experience. I remember when I was a kid, the kind of things that we used to do, and the kids today, the kind of things that they do, there is an enormous difference. Okay, the intelligence level of newer generation is far much better than the intelligence level that we were exposed to. It's not that people were less intelligent, but they could do many things. We were never multitaskers. When we were playing, we were only playing. When we were reading, we were only reading. Right? When we were watching, well, TV didn't exist, but when we were listening to radios, we were listening to radios. There were never a multitasking. You look at today's kid. Today's kid will be completely wired up with a mobile, headset, books, and a pen and a paper. This is a story across, right? Across all households. Is it that they are not learning, or is it that this is a bad thing? Probably yes, it's a bad thing, but unless you are exposed to the bad thing, you don't evolve to handle the good thing. And therefore, this is part of the evolution. I can definitely say a generation from now, current generation and a generation later, will probably be as adept to handling completely wired up system as we were when we were looking with pen and pencil and paper. Okay? I've been teaching all along, and I've seen this kind of changes that are happening. Today, kids in the classroom don't take notes. They expect you to provide PowerPoint slides. In fact, that time is also gone now. Okay? Now people actually just sit with the mobile phones and just casually keep making movies. Nobody makes any qualm about it. And they keep making movies. You go and teach them from any part of the syllabus, whether books exist or not, They know their reference material is available over internet. And those who want to read, those who want to study, for them things are very good. But those, multitasking also is a problem in terms of confusion, right? You have 4 different pieces of sweets in front of you and you are confused whether I should eat this sweet or that sweet or that sweet. Okay? And a person who says I can eat all the 4 sweets, he is the best winner. But if a person is a chooser, he will be confused, and that is exactly what is happening in today's world. People actually are not able to make a judicial judgment saying what is good or what is bad. But those who are able to make this judgment, those who are able to eat anything or everything, they are actually going much faster. Okay? Tomorrow's generation, we will have more such people who will be multitaskers. Now, when you are multitaskers, then the next thing, the so-called next bad thing that will happen is you need even higher bandwidths of the network, because then only you can now interfere with the work that people are doing. And unless you interfere with that, you can't grow. If everything remains stable, this is the thermodynamics second law which sets in. Entropy of a system should always be growing. It can never reduce. Okay? And what does that mean? The chaotic system should continue. If there is no chaos, things will not progress. And this is what the biological evolution, the technical evolution has taught us, that chaos will continue no matter what you do. You may like, you may not like. You may criticize, you may not criticize, but you have no option but to go with the chaos. Okay? Now, having said that, internet is going to be the next major factor contributing to this chaos, connecting people together, okay, may not be through computing devices. The basic, when we were students, and in fact later when we were teachers, there was a course called Human-Computer Interface. Very popular course. But what was the need of this course? Because the human I/O is in terms of voice, is in terms of vision, is in terms of images, is in terms of, we have only 5 different kinds of sensors, Panchendri. And unless things are actually applied to us in that way, we actually don't understand. I can't connect a USB interface to my hand and actually collect the data. It isn't possible. Okay? So I need to have, as a human computer, I need to have those kind of interfaces which I can understand, and entire I/O of mine actually will take place through that. On the other hand, digital computer, the entire I/O in digital domain, in the signals domain, in zeros and sequence of zeros and ones and all that. And there are these physical interfaces that we talk of, whether it's USB or this or that. And these were the 2 different kind of interfaces. And therefore, you needed a mechanism to say how this interface works with that interface. And therefore, this was a very, very big program. Very, very big course. You will teach how do you actually do a speech processing. You will teach how do you do vision processing. You will teach how do you do tactile presses, and all these kind of things. Now what happens? All your interfaces on the systems have become human friendly. You have a mobile phone which doesn't have a keyboard. It is touch. Okay, or speak. Your voice assistants of various nature have come in. You want to actually look at the way from one place to other place. You just tell to your mobile, find me a way to India Habitat Center from my current location. And bingo, Google Map opens up. It shows me the path and actually I can go. More and more such things are going to happen. So, the computers, the electronic devices will become more closer to the people. They're already becoming, they will become even more closer to the people. They will be taken for granted. They are already taken for granted, but they will be even more taken for granted that these are going to be the kind of things that you have. You will always be wired up with that. When you are wired up with that, what will be the next thing? When you actually, in your family, you go and look at your child, you're watching him, you're seeing him, right? You know what are his problems. If he says, I have pain in my ear, you can actually touch, feel, look at, why is this a pain? You can assess whether he needs to go to the doctor or not go to the doctor. Change the scenario. Your child is not with you, but you are still with you, and that is a possibility with the internet, where the child in the hostel comes up and says, "Mere kaan mein dard ho raha hai," and then you can actually virtually connect to him, virtually feel him, virtually look at him, and say whether he needs to go to a doctor or not. It's not something which is a science fiction. It is actually a possibility today. And some sense of possibility today exists in terms of robotic surgery. Very nascent possibility, but a doctor 5,000 miles away is operating robotic instruments in this particular place and actually doing the surgery on the person. He can actually feel the pressure that he is going to apply on the scalp. He can actually feel the item that is removing from the body, and all this is possible 5,000 kilometers away. This technology coming to everybody's hand will only make world more closer knit, and therefore these are going to be some of the driving forces for the internet tomorrow, right? You will be able to, for example, look at your child who is 40,000 kilometers away, going through this, cultural shocks, cultural changes, this, that, and you will be there without traveling to help him, to sort him out. And that would be a possibility through internet, through 3D movements, through 3D imagery, to actually look and feel. The kind of internet bandwidth that you will need is enormous. We are nowhere close to that bandwidth today. But one actually believes that if you get about, let's say, gigabit links into your homes, into your mobile phones, I think things will be a lot much more reachable. You will be able to, I remember just 2 decades back, nobody thought video on demand will be a reality. They thought, where's the bandwidth? Today, I don't see a youngster who doesn't have a subscription to Netflix and Hotstar and Amazon Prime. Forget about the youngsters. Even adults like me. Your entertainment itself has changed. This is only video on demand today, nothing else. You don't look at the Sudarsan any longer. You don't look at the GTV any longer. You don't look at the Star any longer. You look at these new web series. You look at these new video on demand. It's a reality today. And I just go back 2 decades back, people were actually always saying it is impossible. Bandwidths don't exist. Now, in few years' time, in 2 decades' time, I can assure you, your projections of 2D images, 3D images, human-computer interface where look and feel is transmitted is going to be a reality, probably at homes, because that is what people need to know. But then, having had that kind of a network and having had that kind of a look and feel, what is the next thing that you will have? Just imagine the entire planet is now neurons, where neurons are people, connected through neural nets, and the neural net is scattered all over. A problem that happens in US its implications are seen in India, and the results or remedial actions are taken in, let's say, UK. All that is a possibility in real time, right? And that, in my opinion, is going to be a booster for our internet applications. We today talk of education. We say, okay, there's a lecture that has been given through video on demand method, it is available to everybody. I think we will actually go even a level higher. Okay, it won't be through video on demand, it won't be through YouTube channels, it won't be through various other kind of similar kind of mechanism that lectures would be conveyed and new classes would be held. It will be mostly in terms of 3D projections, in terms of instructor being there with the student, helping his problem while he's solving, and the instructor being at 20 places. Just imagine, I give a sum to be done by 40 people, okay, or a mathematics problem, and everybody is solving at their own pace, and everybody is having a trouble. Now, I can't be there in all places, but my virtual avatar can be there at that place, and the computer system actually can figure out what is the problem that he is facing, and my virtual avatar will be solving that problem for him. It's a personalized tuition, personalized instruction. That is a possibility. Okay, and I sitting in my office won't even know that people are looking at me or people are getting guided by me. This is not again a science fiction. This is a need, this is a demand by the society. These are going to be the fueling factor for future internet. And I'm actually talking about maybe 2 decades later. But then what is going to happen now? 5G network is already in rollout. 6G network is already on horizon. People are already talking about what will be the applications for 6G. What will be the kind of speeds on 6G. 5G networks, the speeds that people are promising, probably our backend infrastructure is not capable of sustaining that speed. Our servers will not be as powerful as that. Our computing abilities on the data centers will not be commensurate to the network speed that one needs. Our telecom switches will probably not be fast enough to switch at that communication speed. It's only the physical interface that will be like that. Even today, sitting with 4G, I don't think we get 4G speeds at the end devices because there are so many bottlenecks which they exist in our system, right? But then 4G network has already become lot much more prevalent. Things have already improved than what they were, for example, a decade back. And 5G network, when it comes, probably at the end use side, you may not see too much of difference. Maybe it's a faster than 4G network, that's all. But, it should be an order of magnitude faster, and that will probably take its own time for the infrastructure to set in. But then, we are only talking of 6G. And when 5G is actually getting deployed, is getting used, is getting stabilized, 6G is around the corner. And it will be time for 6G to come in. And while 6G is getting stabilized, people will immediately say, my mobile phones, my cameras are going to be 3D imagery cameras, and I need to send out this 3D imagery, and therefore I need even faster bandwidth, and therefore I need 7G network, and so on and so forth. These are going to be the fueling points for the communication to progress. And there was a talk. People actually used to say communication. There used to be courses like communication, electronics and communication and computing, and they were like distance away. Today, there's a mantra which everybody says, computing is communication and communication is computing. The difference between these two have gone away. The two technologies have amalgamated so much that one cannot live without the other. Okay? In future classes, we will actually not even talk of this terminology called computer and communication. They will be given for it, saying computer is communication, communication is computer. When we grow old to that level, and when we say computer is communication, communication is computer, our kids of that generation will say, what are you talking? Where were they different? Right? And this is what the fueling is going to be. They will be knit so much integrated that it will be very, very difficult to separate them out. So CDAC, which is Center for Development of Advanced Computing, will have to change its name. It will have to say CDAC for Development of Advanced. I don't know what we'll call it, but maybe advanced technologies, maybe advanced, but you can't say communication and computing. You know, I was looking at this news. I mean, I have been out of CDAC for a long time, and I was looking at this news that several societies are getting merged. Electronics material and these kind of things are getting merged with CDAC. I thought the most natural merging should have been CDAC and C dot. Computing and communication. Right? You know, I'm saying it. Don't take my word. It might so happen. But basically, in CDAC also, computing and communication are merging. There are so many people who are working on communication technologies, so many people are working on internet technologies, internet applications. The time is already there for computing and communication to merge. Right? And that is going to be the future internet, where we will not make any distinction between computing and communication. So, gear up. Be ready to embrace the next generation of technologies. Look at the speeds and the experience. Be ready for it. So thank you very much for inviting me here, and it was wonderful to see you all again. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for your inspiring as well as very thought-provocative speech and points also. Actually, it took me somewhat philosophically also. I was thinking somewhere about chaos and entropy and negative entropy kind of thing. Was getting into it. So maybe if time permits, I'll ask some questions. But before that, I request Dr. S.D. Sudarsan, sir, Executive Director, CDAC Bangalore, to share his viewpoints on this. So,
yeah, namaste all. So our DG has already given very appropriate inputs. Rather than getting worried about what is in store, better we actually look forward to the change and embrace them in the right way. Sir, you mentioned many things about the supporting the child when there is a pain in the ear and all. In fact, one of the things that internet is allowing us to do, to also connect us culturally, traditionally. We all know in 50s and 60s or even 40s, when people moved out, more or less they were isolated and the culture was lost, or they created their own new culture aligned with the local, some kind of a in-between thing. But with this kind of futuristic internet and the kind of metaverse and other kind of 3D projections that we are talking about, what is going to happen is probably we are going to be able to retain our cultural identity, maybe the diversity of linguistic and culinary dishes that we miss today because of the mass production technology, where the tastes are kind of normalized. The uniqueness will come back. I think that is what the future internet is actually going to make us, a network of diversified one, which is actually much more immune. Diversity ensures immunity. against any threat. The future internet is going to be diverse in terms of technologies. It can be quantum internet on one side, and even today, if you talk to elders, Hawa mein baat karta hai, it has a different meaning. But today we actually speak in Hawa, and it has a very, very positive and different meaning. So I do not know how the NLP engines will process if they get a dialogue of the 1970s which says वो हवा में बात कर रहा है, and they are assuming today's technology, we may completely given a different connotation. So, coming back to the crux of the matter, the diversity, be it quantum internet, be it fiber, be it now we are talking about Li-Fi, connect, light as a source, means of communication. Then we are also talking about if the quantum is better understood at some point, maybe the telepathy that we are talking about, which is there in some kind of philosophical sense and some people practice, we may understand those subtle matters, and that diversity will not only help us sustain the challenges of the future, but also probably connect to life elsewhere in the universe, the larger universe. At least mathematically it is very difficult to say that there is nothing that exists which are similar or equivalent to human thing, because the universe is so large. Looking at the probability, it is a non-zero probability. Still, we have projects running, and that is where the internet is going to help us, whether it is a Mars colony or anywhere. One side is the technology aspect, the other side is ability to culturally connect. But for doing all that, we need a kind of a governance mechanism. Already with AI, we are all talking about AI will do a lot many more things. With ChatGPT, we are looking at what are the moral questions, what are the ethical questions. And the other challenge as an engineer is, how do we validate our solutions? Because if something is system is adopting continuously, who has validated that adaptation? There is no test case till it is adopted. And these adaptations include mutations, means these could be unpredictable. So there are excellent problem statements for as engineers, as a society, as scientists, for us to solve. And how the internet governance as a mechanism going to evolve from best effort internet to something that is not just on demand but with all the qualities. This is definitely a very forward-looking way, future internet, and I do not think any technology will be left behind. All technologies will come back in a different form. If you all recall, we all thought vacuum tubes died till carbon nanotubes. They are back in picture. So it is just that we have the cycle of the chaotic part, and then it stabilizes. Then we think it is going to die down, but only to re-emerge. So evolution is not just for humans, but I think every technology is re-evolving and reinventing. And another example is, people always thought the very low frequencies are not going to be sustainable in the long term. But today with seismic issues and tsunami warnings and trying to understand whales, dolphins and other creatures, even the way elephants communicate that hundreds of kilometers away with each other, VLF and also that kind of technologies are becoming very prominent, ground wave propagation, and how they are going to support us in future internet. So those are beautiful challenges in front of us, and just not computers and communication. I feel content also will get merged in my, if I can just add to what Sir has just said. So we are not going to look at any one. The C is going to mean everything. Basically, philosophically, it is going to connect with all possible things that can go with that C: compute, communicate, content, conversation, you name anything. That may be the future internet. How quickly we are going to achieve probably is the only question. And that is where many of us are not sure how the technology will evolve. That will depend on several factors. but they are all going to definitely come is what I feel. And we are ready to change the name, sir. At least as an individual, I feel that is something very positive, because any differentiation that gets removed is going to allow us to perform better as a human society. So with that, actually, we will request Sri Santhosh ji. On behalf of Balaji sir, I myself will invite him, because he is the one who is decide on the policy, how India is going to be engaging in that activity. And many of us do know here in this audience, at least both online and here, while IETF is reasonably well known, Internet Engineering Task Force, the IRTF, which is the Research Task Force, where we could contribute a lot, very few people are aware of it. I think, we can hear better and get a bit more enlightened. So as a continuation of this, I will request Santhosh ji to please come and address us. Thank you, sir.
Good evening, Professor Moona Saab, Sudarsan ji, Bindu Madhava ji, and all the audience over here. So yes, the topic which we were discussing was on futuristic internet. What the internet would be there in the future. So presently the internet is in a distributed format. So I believe, and the research which is going on is on a decentralized internet. So it will be basically used by blockchains, for which various studies have been conducted, especially the forum which Sudarsan ji has mentioned, Internet Engineering Task Force. So there are multiple working groups which is being discussing on this specific topic, that is on decentralized internet using blockchain. So besides this, as Professor Moona has mentioned, the internet which we were using and we are using will be changing a lot. So the future internet will be having a touch and feel also. So we will be having a kind of a devices. So basically there won't be any laptops or any screens. So the screens will be there in an open area, wherein which we can communicate, touch using a hand gloves, and that is how the future internet will be. Now coming to the architecture, which I had mentioned that it will be a decentralized internet, how it will be transformed, that is what we all need to work upon. I mean, the whole community in India as well as global, we have to work upon. Recently, I came with I read a blog which says that TCP is going to be replaced. Well, TCP IP is the protocol by which the internet works, but that TCP protocol is going to be replaced. So in IETF, we have heard that there are new protocols coming. Many of the people might have heard about QUIC protocol, which is based upon UDP. So that TCP is being replaced by UDP to have more faster internet. So this kind of a changes is happening in the Internet Engineering Task Force. And the problem statement which I have been making several times is the authors from India is only 2.3%, and the global West is leading in this area. So since we have Professor Saab from IIT Gandhinagar, I urge that, sir, we start this initiative from IIT. So I heard that IIT Madras Professor Director is also starting this initiative to send people to write an RFC, that is called request for comments. because we are fundamentally concentrating on certain research area. Sir, I would like to tell you that I am also a student right now, so I am pursuing MTech in cybersecurity in IIT Delhi. So the thing is that we are concentrating mostly on core areas like AI and ML. Yes, they are coming to they are providing a cascading effect to this internet technology. But the issue is we are not concentrating on internet technologies wherein which we bring in more products. So I am just diverging from the topic related to future internet. So future internet, yes, would be mostly driven by the West, and we from India has to. We have the workforce, we have the students who are very active, because I study with BTech students also. I see their potential. So we have to make them understand that these are the areas wherein which one need to work, and you will get a potential to see where the world is working on. Now, here in which I would like to mention that none of the engineering college work on a network management system in India. None of the institution in India, because what we do is mostly there are certain data sets. On that data sets we work. And for the information for the audience over here, we take the data sets from some Canadian institute. In India, to work on a specific problem statement, we don't have any data set. My minor project was on malicious domain detection using DNS over HTTP. So the data set was taken from Canadian institute. Why not we have the data set in India? So this kind of data set, if we have in India, or if we have, say, CDAC is working on many such areas. So if it is provided to the college students, they can utilize it and come out with many solutions which will enable the future of the internet. So this is basically a policy thing which has to be taken by the Ministry of Education, and I understand that they will be taking it slowly. So these are the points which I would like to mention over here. So I believe that India will be at that position where we will be taking the high seat on the future of India. And on the policy side, the UN Secretary General is working on a global digital compact. And this global digital compact will be a big event which will be happening on 2024. So for which we have a summit. Not Government of India has submitted, but our secretary, Mr. Alkesh Kumar Sharma, who is there in the leadership panel constituted by the UN Secretary General. Through him, we have provided few inputs. So I would urge that all the stakeholders in India should provide various inputs on the global digital compact. And the topic which we are discussing also, the US government has come up with a declaration of future of internet, wherein which India didn't sign it. I am sorry that I also don't know why India didn't sign. There were 40 countries which were led by US. They have signed the declaration, which is mainly to protect the user and their privacy. So future of the internet would be protection of the privacy and the security. So these are the areas which the future of internet would be working upon. So once again, I thank Sudarsan ji and Dr. Balaji and all his team who work a lot. I've seen them working from 2013 onwards, which Bindu Madhavaji has mentioned. Now this should not stop. This kind of a project should not stop. There has to be a multiple projects out of this DNS related. Now on the area of BGP, nothing we are doing. So there are many the Australian and Canadian and Netherlands are working like anything on the BGP, on the internet protocol side. So I believe that there will be a transition which is going to happen during this year. So we would be mostly working on internet technologies, not the application thing, but on the architecture level of the internet. So once again, thanks to the organizer for having this conference. Okay, then thank you to all. Bye.
Thank you, sir, for pitching in the different perspectives, including policy of the futuristic internet. So we have heard from all the panelists giving away different thought points and different perspectives covering the entire spectrum. I think the entire spectrum of all the technology concept has been covered. So any questions from the audience? Onto mic.
Hello. So I am Harish Chaudhary from National Forensic Sciences University, and also a research scholar working on the cyber security and internet governance. It is a very broad topic of my research, but basically on the domain name systems. So first of all, thanks a lot, Dr. Balaji, for organizing, and all the CDAC team and the Ministry of IT for organizing such a beautiful conference on the very important and relevant topic. Now my question is that as an academic institution, how could researchers like us could be the part of these activities, and in India, as well as especially on IETF and standard making bodies? So where your inputs, and anybody from the respected audience can tell me, because I know a lot of people are capable of answering this. Thank you.
Yeah. So anybody, Santhosh sir, you want to?
Yeah, thank you for the question, Harish Chaudhary. So as in the inaugural session, my group coordinator, ma'am Asha Nangia ma'am, has mentioned, there has to be an institutional mechanism to sustain this activity till perpetuity, because many project is only for 2 years, 3 years, but the project has to be for a perpetuity, having specific outcomes, wherein which all the stakeholders are to be brought into this institutional mechanism, wherein which the institutions can do capacity building for, say, engineers on IETF, and also do various projects. So yes, we are working on institutional mechanisms. So it is we need the support from various ministries. It is not only the MeitY who can lead it, because there should be a component called fellowships also, so that the student should go to this various international I-STAR organization like ICANN, IETF, APNIC. Now in case of IETF, the registration fees itself is $1,000. Who will pay that? Okay, if somebody is sponsoring that, there has to be some kind of a measuring mechanism. How that should be done, right? So, if writing an RFC or writing a draft is an outcome, no. It has to be culminate into draft. It has to culminate into RFC, right? After that, he or she should converge it into patent. Then from patent, it has to go into product, right? That is how the big companies, mostly Google, Cisco, Juniper, they are there. 1,000-odd companies are there in this IETF. They discuss and they come up with a RFC, and they have a standard on its own, and they make money. So that is how I personally foresee it. I have provided this this problem statement to my superiors. So let's hope that we have an institutional mechanism. We missed a bus yesterday, so hard luck. So we try to get through many proposals through our some mechanism, but yesterday we couldn't have it. So let's hope that this happens, and there will be a continual engagement like this. Thank you.
Thank you. There's one more question, Mr. Anand.
That is not the question. True. Thanks for this conference, and Harish has pointed out a very good question over here for us, and how research and standardization in India could be fostered. And this was one of the crucial thing that we have started something way back around 2014 or 13. Started with root server implementation and then researching on that. And institutional mechanism is really important over here. One of the things that we have done, even I was presenting the paper on that, is a measurement system in India has been developed. See, Europe has RIPE NCC, RIPE Atlas. US has CIDA. Now India is having a measurement infrastructure which is kind of running in across India, 100 locations and 5 locations, that's the servers, and they are capable of measuring from client and server. Now, coming to your question, so an infrastructure is very important in a production environment to actually work on the ITF or IRTF projects. I'm working with NIT Surathkal students on IPv6 extension headers. They are trying to serve coming up with this extension header having a server latency and along with network latency. This measurement platform is trying to give them the platform so that they can convert that RFC into source code. So this kind of infrastructure, if IITs and NITs can just bring their, can deploy in their infrastructure, then the computer science lab could be converted into an internet research lab. Because internet research lab, if you're not working on BGPs like SDNs, the internet infrastructure, future internet infrastructure labs have been set up in Australia, Netherlands, other countries. This is a dire requirement right now that these kind of labs should be there in the campuses of IITs and NITs, where the students could work on this. I'll just give an example of like MicroTik, one of the routers from Latvia. They work on kernel level Linux programming, and they have come up with protocol and standards, and that particular router is used in India, Bangladesh, and these kind of other countries. We don't have any such router companies because the students are not understanding or even not exposed to these kind of things. And there's a dire requirement that the students in these institutions should expose to these kind of platforms, should understand what need to be done, and it could be incorporated in the courses. Because in the future of internet, after 10 years, if we will be the consumers of internet, we will be seeing internet as a black box, then it will be really tough time for us, because all we are talking about the applications on the internet. I say it layer 8, but till layer 7 there are lots of things that need to be done, and we are not there. Thank you.
Sir.
I think our major problem in the country is our attitude of following of the technology which are actually developed elsewhere. In fact, Santhosh talked about TCP being replaced by some other protocol. Okay, and let's go into the genesis of it. TCP was developed when the communication was very, very unreliable, and therefore TCP brought in the factor of reliability. Now communication is now, in today's communication network, TCP is redundant because the communication itself is so reliable, and the TCP is so complicated. With time it has grown even more complicated. And today's most of the communication, the transport layer is HTTP. It is not UDP or TCP. Therefore, these underlying networks underlying transport layer protocol of whether TCP or UDP are irrelevant. Okay, but we never worked on it, right? What did we work on? Applications. We are now looking at, somebody is saying and say, okay, UDP is going to be the next protocol. In Masse, we move and start working on UDP being the next protocol. Okay. Somebody says, go back, ARQ or X25 will be the next protocol. We will go and start working on X25 and so on and so forth. We don't analyze ourselves. Okay. So we as a society have actually followed a paradigm of following someone. Okay. I think we have to break that mindset first. Okay, and how do we break this mindset? Standards, in my opinion, is a game of a dadagiri. A country which is more powerful will define the standard, others will follow. Okay? IoT standards are today defined by somebody else, right? They become unnecessarily very, very complex systems. Is that a need? Maybe not, right? But then first you will implement those complex standards which are there, and then when those guys realize it's very complex and we should to simplify, then we go and start simplifying the network or start simplifying the protocols. So it is, I think, this particular desire that is missing in our research institutes and our researchers, this self-confidence that we are better than others. Okay? We can do equally well. Okay? And that scientific knowledge, that scientific self-confidence is important for us. Our conferences, you know, when you write a paper, where do you publish it? And I'm not saying it is Indian versus international, but where do you publish it? You publish it into those places where there are people from outside coming and giving talks because we want to follow them. Why can't we create, tell me a conference on internet which is as strong in India as something else outside? The answer is none. At least with time, we have actually developed few conferences like VLSI and Theoretical Computer Science and all that, which are very well reputed. In internet, we still don't have that kind of a reputed conference. First thing in my opinion is to create that reputed group, that reputed conference, that reputed mechanism. Everything else will follow, because 10 people sit across the table, solutions automatically start coming up. People start working on it, define the standard. We say, hell with the other standards. It is our RFP. Somebody has to implement things in our place. It is this RFP. Government has been trying very hard to say it should be make in India, design in India, protocol in India, for India. But the reality is we don't have solutions. So therefore we actually end up saying make in India only, we'll look at design in India later. We'll say, okay, make in India, design in India, we'll look at research in India later, right? We have no other option. As long as the job can be done in an efficient manner, we must have standards in India, from India, for India, within India. TSDSI is a very, very interesting body, right? Why do you have to go to ITU for defining the standard? Let ITU come to us. Okay? I mean, why not? That should be the dream. If something is to be done in this country, you must follow the standards. We follow that protocol of China. Standards will automatically start flowing in. In all international places, there's a dadagiri. It is the Chinese and Americans and others who actually define the standards, others follow. So much so that in software, you know, where we are supposed to be a workforce of the world, where we know the technologies, we have developed the technologies, it is the Chinese and Germans and Japanese who actually define the standard of security and protocols and, you know, DevOps or whatever, you know, whereas our people have always been working on it. But we never define the standards. So that, I think, is what I'm trying to say. As a group, we must consolidate first ourselves. There's a story that we used to hear, you know, that 5 sticks are given by this old man, you know, in a bundled form, and saying you break it to 5 kids and they are not able to break it. But you give 1 stick each and everybody breaks it. We need to bring a bundle of 5 sticks. That is, I think, important.
Thank you, sir. Okay, so thanks for this wonderful panel.